Welcome back to Season 3 of Rooted in Reaching. I'm your host, Marty Mecklenburg. Today, we talked to John Nunemaker, serial entrepreneur, awesome font of wisdom, and owner of Box Out, Fireside, among other ventures. We had a fantastic conversation, and I'm excited to share it with you today. Enjoy the episode. I am thrilled to be here today with John Nunemaker. We were just discussing his title. He is a man who has done many things in his life, but we'll settle with owner of Box
Out Sports, yep.
Box Out Sports,
Yep.
right? Which is one of your current endeavors, but not your only one.
Yep. Yeah. And then we also have Very Good Software, which has a couple of SaaS applications in it. Yep.
Right. Yeah. Perfect. So John is here as on the show, we interview entrepreneurs and folks who support entrepreneurs with the general overall mission of just enhancing the entrepreneurial landscape and letting people know that South Bend, Elkhart region, Marshall County, these are great places to do business, start business, and all sorts of things can happen here.
Yeah.
You bring actually a very, very specific niche and success story, I think, to the table that's different than some of the other folks we've talked to so far. I just want to go back real quick, though, and start off with who is John? Where did you come from? How do we get to, let's go up to like 2010.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, are you a South Bend native? Are you?
Yeah. So 2010, I was in South Bend.
You were in South Bend.
At that point, I think I hadn't moved yet to Granger. So I would have been in Mishawaka, actually, right by Mary Gifford Park. So
Yep.
We were over there, and I was working at Ordered List, and I had joined that from Notre Dame. So I worked there for a little while, and then I joined my friend who I worked with at Notre Dame. He had left like a year before me, and I saw him out back one day, I think he was drinking a beer or something like that, and he was talking about how this was his work spot for the day, and I was like, that sounds nice. And then he was like, this could be your spot, and I was like, were you serious? And then we went back and forth, and so that was Ordered List.
So you would work together at Notre Dame.
Yep.
And then saw him living this lifestyle.
Yeah. And
thought, hey, I want a piece of that.
Yep. That was exactly it. So we just kind of worked out some details. And, I think initially we handshook. I don't think we signed any paperwork. We probably didn't even know what paperwork was back then.
Right.
And we pretty much operated on a paper, on a handshake all the way until, maybe when we started making products, which was a couple years later.
Okay.
And so when we made the products, we kind of set up a separate LLC for the products. And that way we could have kind of split ownership. And I think he had a little bit more in the consulting LLC, which was the original one. So
Makes sense. So what was Ordered List?
Ordered List was an agency. So it was basically we didn't do really very little local work. Most of the work was just anywhere on the internet. We at that point in time, I don't know what it's like now, but we found that we could make better, hourly rates and things like that if we were to open to kind of the whole US instead of, really there was, I think even maybe some people from Australia. So it was kind of all over the place. We found we could get paid a little more, and we would basically build websites, web applications, things like that for people. And so that's kind of how it started as an agency. But when we were at Notre Dame, we were kind of a part of their agency. They're public marketing and affairs and stuff like that. And so we helped with that. So we kind of understood that model.
Right.
And so then, but we also built a content management system in there that, now hosts 500 to 700 of Notre Dame's websites. So when we built that, we were like, oh, this is the way we can gain efficiency and scale, because if we know the CMS really well, we can build the websites faster and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And so because of that, when we started Ordered List, we were like, hey, we did that over here. What if we just did it over here as well?
Yeah.
And so Steve didn't want to, originally do that by himself, but now that he had me, we always joked we were form and function. So he made things pretty, I made things work, kind of a front end, back end type split.
Yeah. So you were able to work all over the United States and even all over the world, it sounds like. Is that because you were offering a specific set of skills that were applicable
I think a lot of it
to a client? It was just who needed a specific thing done?
Yep. And a lot of it was just, we actually marketed ourselves, via writing. Back then it was blogs, Blogger.
Yep.
There was WordPress was, blowing up. So that was the way that you marketed things. And so we marketed ourselves on that. So everything we did, we talked about how we did it. We put it out there for people to either to learn or to react to or to educate us if we did something wrong. Yep. And so we did a lot of open source and things like that. And I think doing those things, then that kind of got our names out past just the local region. And so we did some local work. I think we did the community, the donation, what's the learning, I'm forgetting the name of it, Rose Manure,
The Community Foundation of St.
yes,
Joseph
yeah, like
County.
a long time ago, we
Yep.
did their website. So
Yep.
we've done some local work, but like most of it was more just like whoever would see and want like Steve's design or my programming, they
Yeah.
would hire us for one or the other, and then sometimes we would do both. And
Yeah.
yeah, it was mostly just consulting, but we knew we wanted what the dream was to be separated from our hours put in. So that's what we wanted was the whole time was flexibility. So we wanted to be able to
Yeah.
build like a SaaS app or some kind of product
Yeah.
so that we could make money while we weren't working. And because we're lazy. So
It does sound like kind of a dream.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that was
Yeah.
kind of like the thought was like, well, okay, if we want to be lazy, we want to separate our time from the money that we make and
Yeah.
also have the flexibility to like do things during the day that you might not be able to do if you're at a 9 to 5.
Right.
That was kind of the thought process. So that's when we
Right.
started on CMS.
So yeah, I want to dig into that a little bit deeper, but let me take one step back
Sure.
from that. Form and function, I heard you say,
Yeah.
you and your partner. Where did the function come from in your life?
Yeah, so I was always was really into like Nintendo and stats and all those kinds
Yeah.
of things. I played Tecmo football, and I would play Tecmo football, and it didn't keep track of stats. So I would pause after every play, and I would attempts, rushing yards, QB attempts,
Yeah,
all sacks, everything. Which was really hard with Bo Jackson because he always had 100 yards every single time he touched the ball. But so I kind of got into like that kind of stuff, and then I didn't really do any programming or anything in high school. Went to a small school, like graduating class of 10. So we had computers there, but just barely, like some gateways, 95, 96, kind of time period. Then I went to Bethel, and at Bethel, I was like, I think I'm maybe good at math. And they were like, okay, well, why don't you do programming? And I was like, okay. So I did programming.
Yeah.
And I found out I wasn't good at math.
Okay.
It's just a small school,
Yeah.
I was okay at math, but I was not good,
Yeah.
But I really liked building stuff. I took a couple of programming classes.
Okay.
And specifically one class where I was just in office hours all the time with the teacher. And he was really patient with me, worked through, taught me how to do all the things. And I remember Steve was in that class too. He would walk in, hand in his homework, and leave. And I would be there for hours. So I hated him. And now I'm the one that loves programming and he loves design. It's totally flip-flop.
Right.
It's just a matter of enjoying the process of building and kind of.
When you were in those long office hours, is that because you were bringing a lot of sort of curiosity to,
it was
or was you
terrible.
just trying to understand it?
Yeah,
Okay.
I was just trying to learn. It was like, oh, you got to do whatever, a for loop or something. And I'm like, this doesn't make sense. How is it incrementing?
Yeah.
All the stuff that like when you learn how to program becomes a lot easier. But for some reason it didn't click with my head right away, or I think I was just slower to learn. But once I learned it, I really learned it and it stuck with me. So
what drove the perseverance in that case? Because if you were struggling to learn it, some students might say, this isn't for me, and walk away, switch their majors. But for some reason you stuck with it.
I terrified of failure. So, and it was the first, I mean, I had outside of like one class, my entire school career, I had straight A's. And all of a sudden I was in a programming class and I was getting a D. And I was like, what am I going to do if I get a D?
You're like, this cannot happen.
Yeah, this cannot happen. So I was like, I grew up on the farm. So I was like, well, when you don't, when you're failing, you work harder. So I went to every office hours. I did everything I could until I finally understand it. And, by the time I was maybe 2 or 3 years in, I would almost TA. Like I would end up helping the other people because I just put the work in, at first. So, but it was literally, I'm terrified of failure. So that's
well, I mean, we're all motivated by certain things.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly that makes sense. Honestly, it's maybe not the healthiest psychological thing in the world, but I can see, it drives a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you persevered through this and you did not fail.
Correct. Yeah. I got it up to, I think, a C by the end of the year.
Okay.
And that was the last C that I had. Then after that, I was able to figure it out. But yeah, it took a lot of effort. That was, I think, my sophomore year, like the first semester. So
yeah. I'm assuming that outside of the fear of failure, there was something else about it that kept you going.
Yeah. I love that as soon as I discovered the internet, that's what really got me liking it. Like when I was just writing these programs that only ran like on a laptop or not a laptop. We didn't really have laptops back then, but
sure, a CPU.
Yeah, we had like an old computer in the computer lab at Bethel, and it was like I would see, like this calendar run, and I'm like, this is boring.
Mhm.
And then like my junior year, I took a web class and I learned how to like move a file in a place. And then I could like call my mom and be like, type this in your browser and she could
Yeah.
see it. And I was like, that's amazing. Like the fact that
Yeah.
I could do something and instantly anywhere in the world they could see it.
Yeah.
That's what really got me hooked. And that's when I started putting a lot of time in on my own outside of school.
Yeah.
Like everything my
Okay.
senior year was basically either internships in programming, web programming specifically, or it was like self-studies. So,
Okay.
where you get like somebody to sponsor you and they're your teacher and then you set a goal and you kind of do it on your own. So I built like a bed and breakfast website and that was one of my things that I learned how to use databases and stuff on.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
literally went through like a Sam's Learn databases in 24 hours book that they used to have before
Yeah.
we had ChatGPT and all that awesome stuff.
Right.
So,
Right.
yep.
Right. Yeah. I have similar memories of that, where I remember being in college and I think it was Yahoo, actually. Yahoo was like an early platform, and being able to find a friend of mine who was going to Michigan State in the directory that had been
Yeah.
published, and I was like, "Holy shit! Like this, like there's stuff
Yeah.
you can do with this. Different than like you're saying, just some loop on a computer.
Yep.
Like there's a connectivity piece to it that was
Yes.
very compelling.
Yep.
Obviously, and seems like you felt that too.
That's 100% what it was.
Yeah.
That just as soon as I realized I could make something,
Yeah.
put it out there, other people could see it. So
Yeah.
I started making my own website and redoing it every like 2 months just because practice,
Sure.
And then a guy from Skyline RV, like somehow, I don't know if he Googled or what back then, but somehow stumbled on it. I got like a paid internship and got to do that. And that was just kind of my whole senior year then was going nuts on
Yeah.
that. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah.
mostly I was scared to fail, put the time in. And then when I saw what I could do with it and I could build, it's just a dopamine hit. It's like playing video games.
Yeah.
It's just you're building software instead of playing with the software.
Right.
So,
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, it does make sense. So you were doing that. You were at Notre Dame, and then you and Steve
yep.
started your own company.
Yep.
Was that a scary move for you to go from working at a big institution that had benefits and all the
Yeah.
bells and whistles that you expect from a job, and then all of a sudden you have freedom, but also you're on your own?
Yeah. I think I would have been scared or probably too scared to do it on my own. I think this is why I always tell people find a partner because it's hard and you got to find the right partner because if you get the wrong partner, that can make things worse, just like marriage and things like that.
Right.
So, but I think, having a partner, like Steve is one of those people who's just like, it'll be fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Like,
Yeah.
and so he was like, oh, we've got like 10 grand in the bank. That's a couple months. We're okay.
Yeah.
And so that was just enough that it was like, okay, like, yeah, it seems fine. So I jumped. So it didn't feel scary for me, but I think part of it was Steve had clients. He had regular revenue coming in.
It makes sense.
Yeah,
There
wasn't
was some
starting
comfort
from
level that you were walking into something that was already working.
already existed.
Yeah.
I would hopefully just add to it. And like he was, doing well enough that like, maybe he takes a hit for a little while, but then I'll start bringing clients too.
Very good. So you were bringing clients, he was bringing clients. So I think what's interesting to me now is like where you went from there, because you could have just been just a web design firm building websites for businesses around the region, or even around the country, if because your reach was bigger. But you took it someplace different, and that led to new opportunities for you.
Yeah.
Am I getting that right?
Yeah. We were building the software, but then we didn't know how to sell. So we were like, well, we'll just do what we did before. We'll just talk about how we built it. So we went to conferences, we went to all that kind of stuff. So we went to a lot of Ruby, Rails, JavaScript, jQuery, all these different technical conferences, and we would speak. And then we would speak about how we build our products. And then it'd be like, oh yeah, and you can use our products. Yeah. And so that was just what we knew. So that's what we did.
Like the blog post part of that too, like blogging about what you were doing and why you were doing it. And
it's 100% that. Like when we wrote the CMS, we literally one blog post was like what features, we were going to put in it, how we were going to do pricing, we went through like all the bits, and then that people get kind of vested and they get interested because once they know a little more behind it, they're not buying software for software. They're buying, some tool to get their job done, but also from like everybody buys from a person. And so if they get to know you a little bit in your thought process and they say, hey, I like that thought process, it goes a little easier. So we did all these conferences, and then, one of them was in New Orleans. It was a Ruby conference, programming one. And one of my friends there from other conferences had started GitHub. And so he was there. We, met up and chatted for a while just about the different things we were working on, and didn't really think anything of it. And then went home. And he was like, what if I like invested in your company? And we're like, well, we're making money. I don't think we really need an investor.
Yeah, you weren't thinking about yourself that way.
Yeah, we weren't. We've always been bootstrappers. We just used our like we can build. So it's really just can we market and sell.
Yeah,
that's the hard part. We knew the building part, so we're like, we don't really need money to build it.
Mm.
Maybe we could get money to market or sell it, but we didn't know how to do that, so that wouldn't really help us. And then eventually he was like, well, why don't I just come to South Bend and we'll just talk? And I'm like, okay. So he flew in. We had baked oatmeal for the place that is no longer there anymore, Main Street Coffee or whatever.
Okay,
it's
right.
a bank now, I think.
Yeah.
And just spent like the whole day, kind of talking. He's like, well, what if we just acqui-hired you guys? Because at that point we were 5 people.
Okay.
So it was Steve and I, and then we had 3 guys that worked with us who joined up in the previous like maybe 12 months or something like that. So, and that's kind of how that went. And so then they like the idea of having this like strike force of like 5 people who already work together really well.
Right. That makes sense, right? You already had a team.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So when you were going to the conferences, you recognize that as marketing.
Yep.
And you were doing it because it was the only kind of marketing that you really knew how to do.
Yep.
Did you just like call up the conferences and say, "Hey, we're really good at what we do. Do you want us to come speak?" Or how did that piece work out?
Yeah. Well, as far as I remember, like a lot of it was just like most conferences for tech will do like a submission round. And so you can, and so if you're writing a lot, you're learning how to craft headers and titles and things like that. Creating like a proposal for a conference is a very similar thing. How are you going to get eyes on it? How are you going to get them to pick it? It's the same as writing a blog post. So I feel like it went kind of naturally to be like, okay, well, so like one of my talks was like, don't repeat yourself, repeat others.
Yeah.
And so, cause like a big phrase in programming is like, don't repeat yourself. They're always like, oh, keep your code dry, DRY, don't repeat yourself. And so my big thing was like, the best way to learn is to copy everybody else. That whole idea of like imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Just there's, great artists, good artists copy, great artists steal, like all those kinds of, that was the whole thing.
That philosophy has been out there for a while.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
probably forever.
Yeah. And that is exactly how I got to learn all the things that I did is like, I'd see a popular project. I think maybe, naively I could, or stupidly I could do it better, or I had a different take on it. And so then I would just learn from how they did it and do it a little bit differently. Yeah. And then maybe it gets popular, maybe it doesn't, and that kind of thing. But I thought that was a valuable way to learn just by copying what other people did, because then you kind of mess with it and you get a little better sense of how things work.
Do you think copying and making your own lowered the barrier for failure in a sense of
100%? I'd never thought about that, but yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I literally never crossed my mind till you just said that, but I guarantee that's probably what I was doing, because I was like, well, if I start from scratch, what am I going to build? What if people don't like it? But if it's something that's out there, that's popular, that people like, you just have a different take on it.
Yeah.
It definitely does.
I ask partly because I've seen entrepreneurs like fall too in love with their idea.
Yeah.
Or it becomes too precious, and then failure becomes almost impossible. Whereas it seems like, if you're iterating, you're taking something somebody else invested in, and you don't feel like, oh God, if this fails, it's on me. Right.
Yeah.
So
what's hilarious is like,
great.
Literally everything we built, if I think back on through that lens, like we built a CMS when WordPress was really popular. We're like, well, we're just going to do some things different than them. Yeah. And we built, Gauges, which was analytics when Google Analytics was popular and free. But we were like, well, we think they do everything. What if we just did this really well? I think people will pay for that.
Yeah.
And then there was SlideShare, and we were like, well, they have ads everywhere. What if we built SpeakerDeck and it didn't? And so like literally everything that I built it's some, like there's some big player, which means there's a market.
Right.
So you don't have to, you're not,
market's been pre-identified, right?
So it's just, can you carve off a small slice of it and make a living?
Yeah. So. That's actually really fascinating. So did Steve bring that same mindset to projects? Like you guys would just sit around and be like, hey, we see this company doing X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can carve off a piece.
Yeah. For him, it was always like a design thing. So it was like, he would look at it and be like, well, that's ugly. Like we can make something that's prettier than that, or that the workflow is better for the person using it, like there's fewer steps to get their deck online, or there's, it's faster to get the script installed and start seeing data in real time instead of waiting like an hour or 4 hours, whatever it was back then.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I think, he would bring it more from like that standpoint of like, let's make it look nicer and work better,
Yeah.
and then, but I think that's an interesting point because I've not ever backwards correlated that until now, but that was probably a big part of it. So
Yeah. I mean, I love that you guys were very experimental. It sounds like, and also your marketing technique is fascinating as well. Even though I understand like the blog post thing was pretty common in those days.
Yeah.
But it's almost like an intellectual form of marketing, right? You're putting your knowledge out there in the world, and people are becoming interested in the way you think as much as anything else. And that's what started drawing companies to you or clients to you.
And I think that's why we built a lot of dev tools and why a lot of dev teams hired us as like an extra, like strike force or whatever you want to call it on the side, because they were like, well, we already are doing this. What if we added them over here for like a little bit of help, and that would like kind of bolster, so they get something done a little faster or things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was definitely, I think that is the approach. I don't think we were not that smart back then to think that through. It was just like,
good instincts.
Yeah, it was just like, here's a way to do it. Like, what if we just talked a lot?
Yeah.
Like, and it worked out.
Well, and I can see how that would be attractive to GitHub too. Then, right?
Yeah.
Like here you were, 5 people already working together. Bringing a kind of creative mindset to the work, right?
Yeah.
You're not settling, right? You're kind of keeping your eyes on what's next, what's new, and GitHub probably liked that about you.
Yep.
And also knew your expertise level was pretty high.
Yeah. Well, that's if you put everything out there.
Yeah.
Then people know. Like,
True.
I mean, it's it always blows my mind when I remember when I was at GitHub and I was interviewing people, I'd be like, I don't know this person at all. How am I supposed to know if they're any good or not?
Yeah.
From like a resume and like even asking some questions, like it's kind of hard to tell. But like the people who had a site, a blog, videos, whatever, like things like that, you can look at it and you say, okay, I can see some product.
Pretty hard to fake.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
Pretty hard to
especially
fake that
open
stuff.
source. I mean, open source is like literally the code's there.
Yeah.
You can look at it and say like it was good or not.
Yeah.
And it's attributed to, Marty or whoever.
Yeah.
So you know exactly the lines they wrote and the lines they didn't and stuff. So it is pretty bare, and you can really tell. And I think that's part of the rise of GitHub is because of that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it makes sense. So what was that transition like for you guys? Was it immediate success? Did you have to go back and drink a beer and say like, okay, wait a minute, like, do we really want to do this, or are we steady as she goes?
Yeah. So I mean, what basically
it seems like a big change for you.
It's a huge change. So it's basically going from complete freedom now to having a boss again.
Right.
So I was like, I don't want to do it. And everybody else was like, let's do this. Like, because everyone's looking at bigger salaries and stock options and all these kinds of things.
Yeah.
And I was like, we're doing fine. Like, we don't need this.
Yeah.
Like, and I wish there was a world where I could go back and run an A/B and see what would have happened, just because I'd be really curious. But I think what we did is we went back and forth a bunch, and I was like, look, I'm not going to be 1 on 4 and like block this.
Right.
So instead, let's just negotiate and try and get as much as we can. And so we just went back and forth a couple times, and then we were like, yeah, let's do it. I mean, if there was anywhere we were going to go, it would have been GitHub.
Yeah.
We knew the founders really well because they're good people. They're at the conferences.
Yeah.
We've hung out with them a lot. Like, there's a strong trust factor. We wouldn't have did it for just like any random acqui-hire. For them, it was more like specifically we believe in that product and that team, and that's why we did it.
Yeah.
So it was less about all the other stuff.
Yeah. Okay, acqui-hire is not a term that maybe many of our listeners are familiar with. Can you explain what that is? I mean, it's acquisition and hiring. But tell us about it.
Yeah, so it's basically when you've got maybe a product or an agency, and you've got a team that already works together, already has all these established patterns. They're successful. They're shipping. They're making good things. So at least from a software standpoint, I don't know from any other standpoint, but from a software standpoint, that's what it is. And then a bigger company comes in, and they're like, look, hiring is brutal. It's really hard. The success rate, the number of applications, the effort that your team has to put in, it's a huge drain on a team. So if you can just go in and buy a whole company that already has, in this case, 5 vetted people or 10 vetted people or bigger, is a very common way in software to just kind of speed up the hiring process. So
is there a component in there where they bought your business?
Yeah.
And then hired each one of you as individuals.
Yep. So it's an acquisition from a standpoint of like, typically they have to buy the business because you've got a business that's making money. So you're not just going to shut it down. for nothing, and you're not going to run on
Right.
the side while you're working for them. They don't
Right.
really want that either.
Right.
So it's an acquisition from the standpoint for us. We were like, hey, how we worked was like we would put in a bunch of hours on our products, and then we would do a bunch of hours in consulting. So we kind of like lumped them and we scheduled it that way. And we were like, we're just finishing up a whole bunch of product stuff. We have to do like another 3 months of consulting or, to pay the bills.
Yeah.
And so you can have us next week or like in 3 to 6 months. And they were like, okay, next week. So we went really fast. The lawyers got really mad because none of us had signed. Again, it was a handshake. Neither side had signed any paperwork.
Okay.
They hired us, gave us positions, everything.
Wow.
And then we worked out the rest of the stuff later. Like 3 months in, we finally just told them, just agree on everything. It's fine.
Let's just check.
Yeah. And just check the box.
Yeah.
But so they took all 5 of us. We had 2 companies, a consulting company. We just shut down.
Okay.
Stopped taking new clients. That was really easy. Shut it down and it was done. The other side was the product company we call Orderless Creations.
Okay.
So that one had Gauges, Speaker Deck, and Harmony in it, the 3 products. And so they bought those. They didn't want, they had plans for Speaker Deck.
Okay.
They didn't want Harmony or Gauges.
Okay.
So we had friends for both that were interested in buying them.
Okay.
So they sold them super, super cheap.
So GitHub bought the whole thing and then sold off those 2 components to people that you knew.
Yeah. And so then we got some cash up front and then options.
Yeah.
So
That
was so it was a big trade of like 100% ownership to like fractional percentages, in a bigger thing.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And you were nervous about it, right? You were the one guy out of 5 that...
Yeah, as far as I remember. Yeah, I don't remember anybody else being nervous, but yeah, it's a long time ago.
Yeah. So do you remember how it went? Like...
It went good, honestly. Like, it went great. Like, the funny thing is they bought us as a strike team.
Yeah.
And we all 5 went completely different ways.
Oh.
So it was like, Steve started working on like the Mac app. I started working on building an analytics team for like repository analytics and internal company analytics and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Another guy started working on the support team and the software that made them, and handle more requests and things like that.
Okay.
And then, one guy moved kind of into the open source, like liaison, something like that, like working with open source people, getting them to move their repos to GitHub, which is always like a big thing for us.
Okay.
Just people moved all over the place. So
it didn't pan out the way you originally thought it would, where the 5 of you were kind of a coherent team.
We thought we'd stay together.
Yeah.
And they thought we'd stay together. And then we went totally separate. But I think everybody on both sides was perfectly happy with the way it ended up. Like, nobody was upset or bothered or any of that kind of stuff. So we kind of all just like, once you get into a bigger company, there's so many cool different projects.
I imagine. Yeah.
So it's like, some people care more about helping, so they end up in support. I cared more about numbers, going back to technical.
Right.
So I went right into, I was like, okay, we need an analytics team. Like, so
it does sound very much like you were drawn to the thing that you're drawn to.
Yep. And then everybody went their way.
Yeah.
And one of us is still there. So that was 2011. So he's I think number 3.
14 years in.
Seniority.
Wow.
Chart at GitHub now.
Wow. How big was GitHub when they hired you?
45 through 50. So there were 45 people. And they're not taking any funding yet.
Got it.
They were bootstrapped.
Yeah.
I think in the millions a month maybe range. Okay. And then every ounce of money they got, they just hired more people.
They're just expanding their staff. Yeah. So you 45 through 50. But you were remote, obviously. Yep. So you still maintain some of that lifestyle of you're sitting out on your back porch or your deck or your...
A lot of flexibility.
Was that built into it? Did you negotiate for that?
Yeah. There's things I negotiated to like stay at the strategic layer because like, I was like, I don't want to go from having control to not having control. Yeah. And that didn't pan out. It doesn't work really. It's hard to be strategic remotely 15 years ago.
I imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the difficult part. And we found as soon as we were out of SF, if we'd have stayed, I think we would have stayed in leadership. But as soon as we were out of SF, we just became contributors.
Did you actually go to San Francisco at some point?
Just for like, just for paperwork and things like that.
You never office there or anything like that?
No,
it was always,
it would be more like, a week here and there or something like that. So it was pretty quickly, we just were back here and stayed back here. And then they were, meeting in person all the time, and it's hard to Zoom us in. Yeah. Zoom didn't.
Again, 2011. Yeah. If it did exist, it was barely a thing.
Yeah. Yep.
So, okay. I kind of want to hear the rest of the story. So you're all 5 of you, Strikeforce, GitHub, one guy's still there.
Yep.
But the other 4 of you have moved on to other things.
Yep. So Steve and I are still together.
Yeah.
And so we have, Box Out, and then he's a passive investor and very good. So he doesn't actively work on any of those things,
Okay.
but he contributed to help us
Got
acquire
it.
Fireside and stuff like that.
Got it.
And then we have Hoyt, who's still out there, John Hoyt.
Okay.
Brandon Keepers is on a sailboat somewhere.
Okay.
So he has a
Good
few
for him.
different,
Yeah.
random things that he
Yeah.
works on, websites, sailboat.guide and some stuff like that.
Okay.
He
Okay.
got really into sailboating. So
That's cool.
they've been doing that for quite a while. And then Matt Graham he was the last one that we hired. He was literally there for like 2 months, I think, when we got
Okay.
acquired, 3 months. It was very short, maybe 6 months.
Worked out well for him.
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
And so he's working at Heroku now, which is a Salesforce company.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
doing design.
And why did you leave?
Why did all of us leave?
Well,
or why did I leave?
why did you leave?
I left because I hate big companies. I
Okay.
have control issues. So yeah, I like return on investment. I like impact.
Yeah.
I like having the ability to if I get an idea, to push it forward and stuff like
Okay.
that. I just never felt like I could do it inside of GitHub. I'm just not. I don't know if I'm not a company man or I don't know what the
Well-
right thing is, but it just didn't
Yeah.
work well for me. in there.
You seem very independent minded, right? And
Yeah.
I imagine is where did GitHub get a little more corporate as time went
yeah.
on?
Yes. So
Yeah.
about 15 or 16, I think it started getting really corporate.
Okay.
Because by then we had taken, $200 million in funding.
Right.
2 rounds. So I was like,
Right. So there were different pressures being put on GitHub and the way it was organized, the way it was run.
yeah.
Yeah.
I went from, in 4 years, we went from 50 people to probably 1,000.
Wow.
And, from being literally working at the same level as the founders to 7 layers deep, and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
probably 16, 17, I was just like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. But I had options. Some were
Yeah.
vested, some weren't. And, it was like, well, I can tough it out. It's however many years in. At some point, they were talking about IPO or sale or something like
Right.
that. So I thought, it's fine. I'll just show up. I wanted to do more, but it just big companies like that are not necessarily set up to do that, to have independence and do more
Right.
and make
Right.
decisions unilaterally and stuff like that. That doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Same thing
no, I'm
at
sure.
Notre Dame,
Yeah.
And so I think for me, it was just I wanted to be back in a small company. So I started working on some stuff on the side
Okay.
because I was like, I need to bring back my indie spirit.
Yes.
Stuff like that.
Yes.
And then I just was like, you know what? I'll just show up and I'll do whatever I'm asked and I'll
Okay.
do it as best as I can. And so I did that for a couple years. And then 2019, that Microsoft bought them. And so then I was like,
that was your chance to walk out the door.
Microsoft was always
Yeah.
the devil growing up. They were like the monopoly. Now
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
Microsoft. They're awesome.
Yeah.
Because it's cool.
They did go through
But
this phase where
they did.
they were the bad guy,
Yep.
right?
And I switched to
They
Mac.
were the evil empire.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm not going with the evil empire, you
Yeah.
know? So as soon as that was all over, I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm good. They were still evil empire. But then I realized, a year later, I'm like, oh, actually, Satya's a really great CEO. They're a cool
Yeah.
company. It would have been
Yeah.
interesting to work there, but
Yeah. So you would have become a Microsoft employee technically, right?
yeah, it's a
At least.
subsidiary, but yeah,
right. Somewhere in the
all
chain
the benefits come from
Yeah.
Microsoft
Yeah.
and stuff like that now.
Yeah.
It's a Microsoft company.
Yeah.
Everyone that I've talked to that's still there. So
Yeah. So how did it feel to get back to your indie roots?
that was
As
awesome.
you say, you're free. You're outside of the corporate umbrella at this point. The side hustles that you started, are those what you
So one of them, Flipper.
transitioned? Is that Flipper?
Yep.
Okay.
So Flipper was an open source project, and I have a commercial side of it.
Yep.
And so that was one that I was working on. And then what I basically did is after I got out, I was like, okay, what's next? And so I just went right back to Steve. I was like, what you doing? And he was working on Box Out with
Okay.
his partners there. And so I was like, do you guys want another person? And he was like, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
So he talked to them, and they're like, sure. And we kind of all knew each other, from just
So Steve had left before you,
Yes,
and
yeah.
it was involved in Box Out at
Yep.
that point.
Yeah, he
And Box
left-
Out is what? Let
So
us.
Box Out is sports marketing. So it's really fast. It's I would say it's a CMS for social media graphics. So you type in a few things in a form, hit a button, you get a well-designed, on-brand, really fast, quick graphic. And then
Nice.
you can post it to Twitter. We make, 3, 4 platform sizes all at once with, different arrangements and stuff. So
Got it.
you get to optimize Instagram, optimize Reel, all that kind of stuff in just one click. So that's what it does. So all the way from Notre Dame, they use it
Yeah.
to support. So they'll design things. and then they will give them to us. We'll build and put them in our system, and then their students and interns and employees will use it to actually generate stuff.
Yeah.
To high schools like I think Riley or Washington or both of them.
Okay.
We'll use it, and it could be just anyone. It could be the AD. It could be whoever.
Okay.
We'll just pop in, make a score update, key player, birthdays.
So it's scalable, high school level, college level, like across
Started
the
out
spectrum.
very college,
Yeah.
and then moved. Maybe the last 3 years, we're probably now like 70% high school.
Yeah.
Because there's more high schools, which makes sense. So that's what Box Out is.
And you were able to leave GitHub and then step back into a role at Box Out alongside of your own endeavors, which were going at the time as well.
And
right?
so my own stuff was really small at that point. Like Flipper, we had built it and it worked, but like we hadn't even put billing on it or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was just me tinkering with it. Like the open source side was working really well and it was being used a lot, but that's free. So you don't make any money.
Right.
I mean, it's used Shopify, GitHub, like a whole, GitHub might not anymore. I don't know, but like it's used all over on those. So like that side was really well. So I thought, well, surely there's something commercial there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's still now it's small. We just keep slowly adding stuff to it and supporting it, making it better. But it's very niche. It's just kind of targeted at one programming language and stuff like that.
Yeah.
LaunchDarkly is the huge competitor in there. They're like 500 million in funding, 800 million in funding, and big. Everybody uses them. So
yeah. What's that one called?
They're like LaunchDarkly or something.
LaunchDarkly.
Like LaunchDarkly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned the open source thing. You've mentioned a couple times. Like it does seem like there's some tension potentially between you seem drawn to open source and sharing.
Yeah.
And then there's also, we need to make some money.
Yeah.
So I can keep doing the things I love.
Yes. Yep.
Like, how did you reconcile that tension, or how are you reconciling it even today?
Yep. So back in the day, it was all giving. It was all just like everything's free, and we just put it out there because you're just trying to like make a name for yourself, and it's leading to other things. There's the side benefit of people want to hire you and stuff like that.
Sure.
But I think I got 2 PlayStations out of it. That was like the high. I was like, cool. Like this guy donated $500. So Steve and I went to Best Buy and we each got a PlayStation.
Bought a PlayStation.
Yeah.
Nice.
Because he had help with that project too. And so, that was back in the past. Now, Flipper, what we do is we're like, well, look, we're not going to retract any of the open source features. We're not going to take them away from people. So that exists. And then what we do is things that are painful to solve going forward get moved into the commercial side.
Okay.
So, it's like analytics. Again, that's another thing that like the commercial side can show like, how many people are actually seeing the feature. Because it's a feature flag system that kind of lets it like when you go to Facebook, you might see a totally different Facebook than I do. Yeah. And a lot of that is because they have all these flags that control like it, are you in this feature or not based on your demographics or based on how you use it or all that kind of stuff. It's a tool that basically lets you kind of do that. So you can kind of create segments, let people in slowly. And avoid. We had to use it on Words of Friends all the time because every time we roll out a new feature, it would bring the whole site down. So then we started rolling it out like 1%, 2%, 5%. Then you start getting confident 10%,
Okay.
So it's that kind of a tool of like a release tool of letting people into while the software's already there. You don't have to keep redeploying and doing all this other
That makes sense. That makes sense.
But yeah, there is a tension of like, well, you want people to have a good experience with the open source version, but you also want to make money on it. So it's tough, but I think for us, it was like, look, we just need, a certain number of things people will pay for, and they're usually bigger companies. And so that's what we'll do. And then we'll just come in like way below LaunchDarkly's prices because they're kind of crazy. I mean, last I knew it was like 10 times the price of GitHub for like a single person, on LaunchDarkly versus like GitHub. And GitHub is a tremendous amount of value. So.
Yeah. So I want to ask you about AI in a minute, but just, you're still open. How has the landscape changed from 15 years ago to where you are today? Because you're still doing it today. You still have open source software that you're developing and that you're sharing with the world.
Yep.
How have things changed though in the last 15 years in that space?
Dramatically. I mean, when I started, I hosted the code on my own website. Like there was there was SourceForge, but it was terrible. So like there was not really a central place to put it, And then I went from that to like GitHub, which is like, it's so easy to just put it there and share it with everybody.
Yeah,
Again, that same experience of like where you put a thing there and like your mom can go see it.
Right.
Like that experience for code. And so that's like, oh, this is cool. I can put it there. I can post one tweet and all of a sudden people are
looking at it,
making polls. They're making changes. They're helping make it better.
Yeah.
They're using it and they're telling me stuff like that, which is really neat. And then, now today with AI, it's like, it's kind of wild because AI can use those tools, but it can also just generate all of it. And so it's kind of a balance. You have to be like, well, would I rather have AI generate all of it, or would I rather like bring in something that the community is kind of supporting right now, and that, I know we'll get upgrades, and like, or do I want to go the AI route and just make sure that I'm doing those upgrades with AI at some point? So it's a little bit different. I don't think it's as easy to, as anything gets kind of like solidified, it's not as easy to like rise to the top and become well known for something.
Right.
Like open source now,
I imagine. Yeah.
people are like, well, I could just do that in AI in like 5 minutes. So why would I, use your gem over here and like you and support you and stuff like that? So it's definitely hard.
Right.
Yeah. But open source now has also become a regular business model where people will have either open source or open core, where like the code is there, but you can't use it without paying for it, like, so you can get comfortable with it from a security standpoint. So there's a lot more interesting models and businesses built on top of it. So I think that's the fascinating part now.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of dipping my toes. I'm not like, HashiCorp or some of these big companies that have made their entire, $1 billion exits on this kind of stuff. For me, it's like, again, it's just lifestyle flexibility.
Right.
Put stuff out there because that's just like a good thing to do.
Yeah.
Put good things out there. So
are you worried about the rise of AI taking that away from you?
I can say this. I'm not worried about AI at all. I love it. I'm obsessed with it.
Yeah.
I use it like crazy. It has made my entire life from a programming standpoint and a business standpoint so much easier. So I don't think I've stopped to say like, am I worried about it somehow affecting that side of things? Like, I feel like if anything, it just changes. Now you're like, well, instead of saying, here's my, my packaged up code that you can use and hopefully you like it, I can be like, here's like this crazy prompt I used to figure this problem out. And then people are like, oh, I've never thought of doing that.
Okay.
So
that's interesting.
Like, the
There's still,
and the share and the education. There's some of that there, I guess.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Oh, that's actually really interesting. Yeah. Yeah. There's been some stuff in the news recently about like entry-level programming jobs or coding jobs, right, at risk because AI can do X, Y, or Z. I mean, I'm not trying to, I'm not saying, oh, we should be scared of AI either. I mean, it's just like there used to be switchboard operators and now there aren't anymore, right? So like this is just sort of part of the landscape that we're dealing with. But I was wondering about the relationship between the open source coding and sharing that and then people just saying, well, like you just mentioned, well, I can just make that myself.
Well, one of the really cool things about it though is that you like now I could speak multiple languages. Like before I could only I programmed in Ruby.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit of JavaScript, and I've had like a tiny bit of history of Google's Go language and like, but now but I have 20 years of solid programming fundamentals and it's the same across languages. So now I know what to ask for to say, like, I have one of the guys that I follow online. He was like, I just contributed to a Go project and I'm a Ruby programmer. And he's like, I totally used AI. I was like, look, I just want to do this, this, and this. And I know exactly how to do that. And, Claude did it. And then he submitted a pull request. It got merged. And now he contributed to a project that he couldn't have contributed to nearly as easily,
right.
3 years ago, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, I mean, Boxhouse working on a new like renderer right now to make the graphics. And we have like, I mean, it's mostly written in like JavaScript and Node. And I haven't written that since I taught at Notre Dame in 2010 or 9,
Yeah.
And I was able to go in and like completely production solidify this kind of like prototype.
Nice.
To where now all of our, traffic's being sent over there and it's doing great.
Yeah.
And that's because I knew solid principles.
Yep.
And I knew how to tell Claude how to do it.
Yeah.
And then I was able to say, no, that's not right. Maybe do this instead. Even though I can't read I can kind of read it. Like it's just like a language. Like it's easier to hear a language and kind of have some sense of what someone's saying than to speak it to them.
Yeah. No, it's actually really fascinating. So I can see the opportunities that opens up, right? Like because the fundamentals, right? And you've built things many times over, so you understand what it takes to build something. And so you can teach Claude. You use Claude for the most part?
Yes. I ping pong between, I'm always using everything because I just want to see what's the best. So I use Gemini like the least. I use Claude for coding the most. And Claude Code, which actually integrates with your code base. It can read your files and do all that kind of stuff.
Cool.
And then I have ChatGPT as well. And so like a lot of times I'll use ChatGPT to like think, then I'll copy it or tell it to summarize for Claude, put it in Claude.
No kidding.
And then once it's in Claude, it'll write the code. And then I'll be like, what about this? And then I'll paste that back into here. So I go back and forth between them. I heard somewhere that like pitting them against each other is like really good. And it does kind of work because they want to beat the other.
It makes sense, right? They're competitors,
Yep.
right?
And they find different
you
holes
can
and things.
right.
Yeah. So I kind of go back and forth between a lot of them. Claude kind of in the terminal and like that. And then,
Yeah.
more the web version of like ChatGPT and stuff like that. And then we have a ton of GitHub
Yeah.
integrations with Claude. So we can just
Yeah.
on any pull request, we can be like, at Claude, review this, and it'll go crazy and do all that, which is really neat too. So
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's cool. It's a brave new world, right? There's
It is.
lots
It's
of new opportunities.
Yep. It's also scary because you're like, is my business going to exist in like 2 years?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And I don't, but that's,
Yeah.
that's
No, I mean, it's certainly a
so.
concern. I mean, graphic design and some fields
Yep.
and some fields are more at risk than others, I think, right, as you go forward. I'm an architect by training, so I've been kind of keeping my eye on like how is AI influencing the world of architecture.
Yeah.
Not so much on the design side yet, but certainly on like the code analysis side,
Yeah.
which is a headache. Like could be a huge benefit.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
drop this project in, run it past the Indiana building code, and flag anything for me. Boom. Hours of work.
That's going to be
Done.
the next wave. I mean,
Yep.
right now it's like, it's funny because all the coders are like, oh, we're like all our AI stuff that we're doing is going to take everybody's, like jobs away. And then it's like, actually, it's coming for the coders' jobs first because we're making it so much better for ourselves that it's kind of taking away our thing. But I think once we kind of wipe ourselves out, that'll be next is that kind of stuff. It is wild.
Yeah.
But again, if you can take away that tedious stuff, it frees you up for more creativity on some of the other stuff, I feel like.
Right.
So it's like a superpower for people that go for it. So
Yeah. That's great. So I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about some of your other passions.
Sure.
That are outside of coding. Primarily, the one I'm thinking about is your watch business.
Yeah, sure.
So you're a coder. You're sitting in front of a terminal a lot of the time, but you have now gotten into something that's very physical and hands-on.
Yes.
Very old school.
Yeah, and that's basically because I'm a coder. Like everything I do just sits there and rots and is like useless in like 3 or 4 years if you don't, love it and care for it.
Yeah.
So there was something about like just I started liking magazines.
Oh.
Like, because I was just like, I could...
Like physical magazines?
Yeah, I could touch them. I could read them. Like, just weird things like that. And then I started getting obsessed with like buildings and just things that ran without batteries and just like all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So that's kind of how I ended up in watches was just the nature of a mechanical watch and how you wind the crown and it, turns a gear and winds a spring. And then the spring releases that energy, which then turns other gears and keeps it accurate and all this kind of stuff. Like it just got really fascinating to me. So I got into that. And then my friend Chris was like, well, South Bend had a watch company. I was like, I did not. So I went right to eBay that night and I was just searching like, I'll get one.
Yeah.
And I found one and it was in Ukraine and it was probably like 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, something like that.
Okay.
And it was like just absolutely gorgeous. Converted to a wristwatch. I thought it was just, that's how it was. I didn't know it was ever a pocket watch. I didn't know that South Bend didn't even make
made watches.
They only made, pocket watches.
Okay. Yeah. They were made for the railroad industry, right? Pocket watches.
For the railroad industry. That's how they, completely, American watches were everything. They were the best in the world. Everything in Switzerland was Swiss fakes, and now that's completely flip-flopped. But it was really interesting from that standpoint of like learning about how the watches worked. And then I found it. Yeah. And I was like, hey, Steve, check this out. And he was like, if you don't buy that, I am. So I bought it right away because I was like, I don't want him to get it.
Yeah.
And so then he was like, well, I want one. And I was like, okay, I'll try and find one. So then I ended up finding one for him. And I was like, okay, that's cool. And then like a few other people were like, whoa, that's a South Bend. Can I get one? And I was like, I don't know. So I just kind of started researching and I learned that like the case is not the important thing. Like the important thing is the movement, the dial, the hands, and the mechanism that actually makes the watch work. Yeah. And the case you would buy at a jeweler totally separate, and they would just slap them together in like 5 minutes, and then you'd walk out.
And then you'd walk out with your watch.
And then they were warranted for 15 to 25 years, and when they wore through, you'd get a new case. So a lot of the pocket watches don't even have their original cases. Like sometimes they do, and they'll have for so-and-so 1914.
Right. Engraved, etched and engraved. Yeah.
So it's the original case. But most of the time, you have no clue if it is or not.
Yeah.
And so then I managed to find some on eBay that had the same case as some of the other ones I was finding. And so I was like, so I started buying those. And then finally this eBay guy just called me and he was like, why are you buying all my cases? And so I told him,
Yeah.
he's like older, he's like in his mid-60s.
Yeah.
He's, kind of almost done.
Yeah.
And not with life, but with this. And
Yeah.
I was like, I told him South Bend and how
Yeah.
all this kind of stuff. And he was
Yeah.
like, I love it, you young kids, and I'm like, I'm not young. And he's like, no, you're young compared to me,
Younger than him anyway.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's where
Yeah.
it came from. It was just like, this is really cool. Like you can take this
Yeah.
100-year-old watch and you can put it on your wrist and wind it up and it'll keep time, within,
Yeah.
some of them are like within 10 seconds a day, some are within 2 minutes, some are 5 minutes. It just
Yeah.
depends on the level of when they've been serviced and stuff like that.
Okay.
But it's just really cool because it's South Bend.
Yep.
It's old, it's physical, it's lasting. Like I can give these to my kids someday. I
Yeah.
can't give any of my software to my kids. Like, I mean, maybe I can give the business, but like, that stuff is all going to go away. It's going to rot. The quality and the lasting nature
Yeah.
of these
Yeah.
is just like I don't know
Yeah.
what it is, but I got kind of obsessed with that.
No, it is.
Yeah.
They're fascinating. They're beautiful,
Yeah,
right?
they are.
And just intricate and
Yep.
yeah, no battery, no solar power. It's all mechanical.
And
Pure-
120 years ago.
Yep.
The just to do the machining that they did is just wild.
What magazines do you get?
Oh, now? Well, there's some watch ones. Now I don't get very many anymore. I feel like I went through a phase, and then once I got into watches, I kind of stopped. But
The reason I ask is I've been getting the New Yorker for decades now, and one of my favorite New Yorker covers is a robot sitting in some kind of like post-apocalyptic future reading a book,
yeah,
right? This physical book that it has found and is picking up and flipping through.
yeah, and it's like, how cool is this?
Yeah, and books don't last forever either, but
Yeah,
you can pass a book down to a child or somebody in the future in a way that's probably a little different than you can pass a website down or a piece of code down.
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I have screenshots, but I'm like, will my device with those screenshots even exist? Can someone read it in the future? Like, there's all these other things that you're not sure of, but like a brick building in South Bend or a watch from the 1920s or I have one that's 1903. And it's like,
Wow.
Yeah, it might be the oldest South Bend that exists. I've never found one.
Okay, never found one older. Wow.
And I'm like, that's cool. Like,
that is cool.
It's just really neat.
That is cool.
It doesn't really run because it's one of the first ones and they had a lot of quality issues then, but it's just neat.
Yeah.
The craftsmanship of like,
Yeah.
it was made before people flew.
Right.
Like the Wright
Yeah,
brothers
think
were
about
the
that,
end of
right?
1903.
And cars were barely a thing, right?
The Studebaker's were making wagons at this point. They weren't making cars.
Yeah,
so,
that's amazing.
Yeah, it's kind of wild.
Yeah. So you could have gone anywhere. You could have gone to San Francisco and you could be some big hotshot at Microsoft at this point. You're here. You're in South Bend, Elkhart. I think you said you live in Granger now, but like, why?
I like it here. I grew up in a much, smaller town, so a couple hundred people, and, to like come here, like we would go to like Kalamazoo or Battle Creek for like the big towns,
Okay, you grew up in Michigan?
Yeah, in Michigan, yep. And then like we didn't really come down here a lot, but some. And then I went to school here, and I was just like, it has everything. What else could I want? Like again, maybe you don't have 3 Rose Lilies or like 8 Cascades or whatever of restaurant wise, but you have like one of them, and you have, a minor league baseball team. You have like all the things that are in a big city you have here, but you also get rid of a lot of the annoyances, like the skyrocketing of like paying for goods and rent and all those things, and the traffic, all the stuff that you wouldn't like. And so for me, it's like South Bend is just enough of everything. So I love it for that reason. The only thing that I felt like was missing was like this big community. And so that's, like momentum and stuff like that. That's what I'm really excited about.
Right, building that out. Yeah. There was that guy did a documentary, Zach Schrank, a few years ago called Big Enough, Small Enough, looking at South Bend.
Nice.
And it was that kind of...
I didn't see that.
That's
cool.
kind of, it was back when Pete was running for president or gearing up to run for president. So it was like just that idea, though, it's big enough and small enough at the same time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great way that's a much better way than to put it. Yeah, but for me again, it was just like it had a mall, it had like an Apple store, it's got like all the general things. Like I definitely would like a few more watch stores, but other than that, it's and it's got Notre Dame. So you get
it's got Notre Dame,
great athletics. There's a lot of schools. Like it's just I've just become a huge fan. Like we have no intentions to ever leave. We're here for good.
Obviously, we love hearing that since a part of what we're trying to do with this podcast is sell the region and also sell the idea that you can be a fantastic entrepreneur and live here.
Yeah.
And you're literally a living and breathing example of how that can happen. Um, Speaking of that, advice for other entrepreneurs. I mean, you've been on quite the entrepreneurial journey, and it seems like it's been baked into who you are to a certain degree. Like, you don't like the corporate environment. You want to be your own boss, which is something that drives a lot of entrepreneurs, whether they're a car mechanic or a coder. What do you think you've learned on your journey that would be helpful for any other entrepreneur who's just thinking, you know what, I don't want to work at a company. I want to be my own boss.
Yeah. I thought about this a lot, even just from looking at like some questions beforehand. And I was
Mhm.
like, the thing that I feel like worked the best for me, I don't know if it'll work for other people, but I was like, I always went for like flexibility. I didn't go for like
Mhm.
making the most money or like the most, any of that kind of stuff or like the biggest name or any of that. Like
Yeah.
all like what I wanted is I wanted to be able to have like, like my dad worked on the farm. He worked 90 hours. I mean, he's semi-retired and works
Okay.
40 hours,
Oh
like,
boy.
so it's like, I saw that and I'm like, that's a lot.
Yeah, it
So
is
I
a
was
lot.
like,
Yeah.
I want to not, how can I find that fulcrum point of like, doing well enough,
Yeah.
but having the flexibility to take a 7-week camping trip in the summer or things like that. So that was always my thing. So I worked my tail off in my 20s.
Yeah.
And then in my 30s, some of the luck kind of caught up.
Yeah.
And so like, that's my thing. I think that I've told like my nephew and people that are younger that I talk to is
Yeah.
like, work your tail off, do a lot of stuff, work for big companies, small companies in your 20s, see how the world works, and then
Yeah.
figure out what you like. Do you like the big company?
Mhm.
Do you like the little company? Do you want to have your own?
Yeah.
Figure that out. And then from there, like go do that in your 30s or whatever.
Okay.
And then just don't be focused on the money. Because if you focus on the money,
Mm.
like that's not, I feel like if you do things right, eventually in the end, it comes back and
Yeah.
you'll wind up with that.
Yeah.
But focus on, the flexibility and doing what you love and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. That's good advice. That's really good advice. I mean, the flexibility is interesting because I do think people want to be their own bosses, and one of the driving motivations is I don't want to have to listen to someone else. I want to be able to do what I want to do when I want to do it.
Mhm.
If I want to work on a Saturday, that's fine. If I want to take a Wednesday off, I want the flexibility to do that.
Yep.
Matched with hard work. So
Yeah.
So
I think that's probably the key is
yeah.
if you don't have work ethic, then it can be hard. But yeah.
Well,
if you do,
yeah,
I think it's-
it is like the old saying is like about luck, right?
Yeah.
Like, and now I can't remember the exact words around it, but basically you make your own luck by working really hard, and then you put yourself in a position where luck could come your way.
Increase your luck surface. That's the thing I've been hearing
Okay.
lately. Yeah, put
I
yourself
like
in
that.
positions where you increase your luck surface. Like there's just a bigger surface area where lucky things can happen. So
Yes.
that was the
Yes.
conferences,
Yep.
all that stuff for me. It worked out. I don't know if it would work out now for somebody else, but like find more
Right.
ways to take more meetings, talk to more people.
It's probably still, even with AI, it's still generally accurate, I think. Getting yourself out there, making those connections, sharing. What I also love about your entrepreneurial story is that there's a lot of sharing that made it possible, actually. You didn't hold anything as super precious, and you kind of put it out there, and that led to good things, and that led to
I think so.
opportunities.
Yeah, I totally believe that. I think a lot of people get real precious about certain things and algorithms and all this kind of stuff. And I'm just like, I don't know. Again, maybe it's just the period of life where I went through the open source community and stuff. But I'm like, I just always think more, if you put stuff out there, more stuff comes back. It always does, and not immediate. It's a long-term thing, and that's hard, but yeah.
I was at Global Entrepreneurship Congress down in Indianapolis a few months ago, and Brad Feld, who's a big promoter of entrepreneurial ecosystems, I want to even say he has a new book out, but basically that's what he said. You just
cool.
Put it out into the world, and it will eventually come back to you. Maybe not on the timeline you want it to or that you hope for, but it will. What you put out will come back.
Yep.
And you just have to trust in that as something that's going to happen to you.
Yeah. Yep. And there'll be times where it won't feel like that, but a lot of times I feel like it does. It's even just little things like I have half-court basketball in my house, and like all the Penn kids use it to play.
Oh, that's nice.
Not Penn general, but like the basketball team. They hoop. They
no
practice
kidding.
in the summer. And
yeah.
stuff.
Oh, that's
and
great.
I'm like, sometimes it's annoying. There's 8 cars out there, and I'd like to go out and shoot, but I can't. And I'm like, but that's okay. Like, 3 or 4 kids have went and played, college, D1, other stuff.
Right.
I got to say, they played in my gym, and that's kind of neat.
Right. And that was probably something they needed.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
It was extra practice and extra, work and putting in the effort. So
yeah. So before we go, real quick, a visitor to South Bend, Granger, Elkhart, Mishawaka, what should we not miss?
So I'm a foodie, so
Okay,
I
tell us about
absolutely
it.
love Rose Lily and
Yeah.
Cascade. They're both great.
Both great.
There's, we're on the north side, northeast, so we hit up Rocky River a decent
Yep.
number of times.
Yep.
So those are some of my favorite things. A Notre Dame football game or Notre Dame basketball game, men's or women's, those are phenomenal. It's hard to top. I've been to, I don't know, 20, 30 football games, maybe more in my life. And they're just, everyone is special in a different way.
Yeah.
So
great
those are my
experience.
favorite things. Probably, the food and the sports and stuff like that. At least for right now. But I'll have to think more. I'm curious now, what are some things that I didn't think of live, But
well, right. There's always
a lot
a
of great
thing.
stuff.
Yeah. No, there is a lot of great stuff. And you can go home and be like, oh, I should have said this. I should have said this. Oh, there's this one little hidden gem that.
We'll come back and re-record it.
You'll have to do that. Yeah. Well, listen, John, thank you for joining us today. This has been great to hear your story. Really, really great. You've had a fascinating life and many more years ahead of you to do more fascinating things, I suspect.
Hopefully.
So glad you were able to join us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah.